Hello and welcome to our latest Cambly live session. I'm your teacher for today. I'm Tutor Daryl. I want everyone that is here in the chat, say hello to us, tell us where you're from, tell us your name. To those of you that are here for the first time and don't know what Cambly is, it's a great online platform to learn with native English speakers like me or other tutors. And today we're going to be doing something a little fun. Okay, we're going to start a little bit in a couple of minutes. We'll just let everybody get on board and be here. Ooh, I see people saying hello. We've got a hello, Tutor Daryl. Hello from Greece. Please tell us where you're from. Say hello to us so that we know. While you're doing that, I'm going to carry on telling you what we're doing today. So we are doing idioms, but we're doing some strange and bizarre idioms. So idioms that are like very weird and very strange to hear. And they're actually more common than you would think. And we're going to talk about what they mean and how to use them. We're also going to start just to talk about idioms in general and what an idiom is. How do you learn idioms? How do you use idioms? I see some people saying hello. Hello from Korea. Good morning from Brazil, from Sri Lanka, Philippines, Pakistan, India. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Yes, we are doing bizarre idioms. And to those of you that don't know what the word bizarre means, bizarre is another word for strange. So strange and bizarre and weird and not usual, unusual, they all mean the same thing. And that's what we're looking at today. So while everybody is carrying on telling us where you're from, I'm going to explain what idioms are and a little bit of how to actually learn idioms. And you can use that for all kinds of things that you need to learn. So let's start with what are idioms. Idioms themselves are figurative expressions. They are usually a group of words. Sometimes it could just be two words, and sometimes it's a long sentence, and it means something very different to what the words themselves actually say. And we use it when we speak in English, just like other languages have their own idioms. We use them as a fun way to express what we're feeling. I see some other people from Bangladesh, Darshani from Sri Lanka. Again, thank you for joining us. So that's what idioms are, and all languages have their own idioms. Now, how do you learn idioms? Now, this can apply to what we're doing today. We're going to do more than just this list. It's only 7 here, but we're going to do a bunch more as well. How do you learn idioms, and how do you learn new vocabulary? How do you learn anything, especially when it's a language that you're trying to learn? Now, what a lot of people do when they're learning idioms or vocabulary is they take this long list. All right, they like write out a list, they try to learn it, and then they go out and they try to use it, and they've got this big list in their head that they're walking around with, and they never really know what to grab and what to use because the list is very long. So my recommendation when you're trying to learn idioms or a long list of new words is to just choose 1, maybe 2 or 3 on a day. That's it. So you say, okay, today I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to find a way in my English conversation to put it into the conversation, and then you're using it. So it's not just learning a list, it's using that idiom, using that word, using that new thing that you learned. And using it is much more active than just trying to learn it and push it into the brain. So that's what I suggest. Take 1, maybe 2 idioms, vocabulary a day. Find a place to put it into a normal conversation, a normal sentence, and keep doing that every day. And then at the end of the week, you've done maybe 7 to 14 new things. You've used them. They're becoming part of you. So that's the best way to learn idioms. And before we start looking at these funny idioms, how do you use idioms? And is it good to use idioms a lot? What should we? And this is a very important thing about any figurative language. We don't want to use it too much. Okay? Idioms and figurative language, we want to use in a small way. So when you're having a conversation with someone, you don't want to use 10 idioms in a sentence. It's just too much. You're saying too many different things at the same time. So when you're using an idiom, you want to use one in a sentence or one in a conversation, one, if you're writing, one in a paragraph, just so that you have a little bit of figurative language, you're having a little bit of fun, but don't overdo the idioms. Don't go crazy with them. All right, and before we jump in now, remember today is an interactive class. If you have any questions about idioms or about how to use them, I want you to send the questions through. And I'm going to obviously be going through this. I'm going to give an explanation. I'm going to give an example. I want you to send your versions. I want you to use it in a sentence and then send it through to us in the chat. And we can see maybe you're using it a little bit incorrectly. We can tweak it. Maybe you're making something really fun and we can share that with everybody. So please, as we're going through them, send us your own. I'm going to check one more time to see who is here. Some more people from Sri Lanka, more from Pakistan. All right. Thank you for joining us. Let's go. Let's go. So we're going to start with a very funny sounding one as an idiom. And Bob's your uncle. What does it mean? When do we use it? Now, and Bob's your uncle means something is simple to do. That's really what it is. Something is simple to do. And usually we use and Bob's your uncle at the end of a list of steps that you're giving someone. So I could be telling you how to go to the library. Okay, and I say, well, go down the road, turn left, and then you'll see it on your right, and Bob's your uncle. In other words, it's just really simple to do. And this one, and Bob's your uncle, is more of a UK expression, a little bit more on the UK side of things and all the Commonwealth countries side of things. And it's got a funny little story. And it goes back, this is what they say. We never know with idioms. But what they say is that in the 1880s, there was this politician. There was a guy in government. And his name was Robert. Robert, the slang term, the nickname for a person named Robert is Bob. And Robert liked to give all his family good jobs. So if you got a good job and it was easy to get that good job, you would say, well, Bob's your uncle. So that's how the expression came. And so now let's use it a couple of times, and then I want you guys to start sending them through. So again, it's a list of things. We could talk about how to cook something. So I could say, if you want to, let's talk about English. Let's say it's about English. I could say all you have to do to learn the list of idioms is to choose one a day, find a place to use that one, and Bob's your uncle. That's it. So it's much easier than saying it's really easy. It's really simple. So that's number one, and Bob's your uncle. Then another very strange one with an uncle in it. I'll be a monkey's uncle. And this is often just abbreviated. You might hear this a lot in movies, especially if they don't want to use the whole expression. They'll just say, well, I'll be. And a lot of things could be there, but what it means is, if you say, well, I'll be a monkey's uncle, or well, I'll be, is that you are very surprised about something. So it could be anything. Could be anything. You could see like a car crash, or, well, car crash is a little negative. Let's say you see something really funny, and you'll be like, well, I'll be. Like, that was surprising. I did not see that coming. Okay, maybe someone falls off a ladder and paint falls onto their head, and you'll just look at it and be like, well, I'll be. In other words, that is just very surprising. We don't know where that one comes from. A lot of idioms, we just have no idea where they come from. And I think that's what makes them a little special. And it's the same in other languages as well. We don't know where it comes from, and there's a little magic because of that. All right, so again, start sending those. We'll take a break in a little bit to take a look at your own versions of these. Now, the next one is very, very common. Maybe you've heard it before a lot of times in movies and television. And we talk about going cold turkey. So often we will actually have the word going in front of it. We'll be going cold turkey. And it's got obviously nothing to do with eating turkey. Going cold turkey is to give up something you're addicted to. So it's to give up something. Now, it could actually be anything. Obviously, when we talk about addiction, the first thing we may think about is drugs or alcohol, but you can go cold turkey on anything. So you could say, well, I'm having too much coffee. I'm going cold turkey. I'm just giving up coffee. I'm stopping. And that's the other thing. It's to stop straight away. There's this sudden stop that happens. So that's another thing that we should put in here. It's a very sudden stop. You are not having any more. I'm going cold turkey on coffee. I'm not having any more coffee. Same thing for drugs, or you could even talk about maybe you're watching too much television. You could say, I'm going cold turkey. I'm just going to switch off the set and that's it. You could even talk about it in a short space of time. Okay, so maybe you're just saying, I'm going cold turkey for a week. I'm not going to watch any more series. I'm not going to watch any more movies. I'm not going to drink any more coffee. I'm going cold turkey for this week. You're giving it up. And you could even take it a step further, and you could say that you're going cold turkey about a person. Maybe you don't want to be around a certain person, and you could say, well, I'm going cold turkey on that person. I'm just not going to be around them. You could go cold turkey on anything. Maybe you don't want to say certain things, or you don't want to act in a certain way anymore. You could say, I'm going cold turkey. I'm just not going to say those kinds of negative things anymore. So anything can be cold turkey. All right, then another one that is, a lot of these have to do with food and animals. We've got cut the mustard. We've got cut the mustard. And this means to meet expectations. To meet expectations. And we use it like a verb because it's got the cut there. So we would say that just doesn't cut the mustard for me. In other words, I'm saying that just doesn't meet my expectations. It doesn't do what I thought it was going to do. And again, very general. We could use that for a lot of things. Let's say I go to test drive a car. And you know what? I was excited about the car, but just didn't cut the mustard for me. Just didn't meet my expectations. Didn't do what I thought it was going to do. So that is cut the mustard. And again, we don't know where those come from, and that makes it more fun. Then another one, and this sounds pretty bad, make a big stink. And I'm sure you guys know that a stink is like a bad smell. So why would we want to talk about making a big stink about something? Making a big stink is to make a big problem or make a big talk about something in a big way, shout about it, bring it up. You're making a big problem, talking a lot about something. That's to make a big stink. All right? And we could even take out the word stink. Obviously, we don't need it to be big. You could just say he's making a stink about this. And so that means to make a problem or talk a lot about something in a negative way. Talk a lot about something negatively. So talk negatively. So again, very general. That's another way, another reason why I like these kinds of idioms is that they are general. You can use them in lots of different ways. So you could make a big stink about work. Let's say that at work, there's a guy that's stealing your lunch. And this is a problem for you. And so you make a big stink about this, okay? You let the whole office know what's going on, and you're making a big problem about that. You could also make a big stink about something more serious. Maybe someone is making a big stink because they didn't get their promotion. They didn't get more money, a pay rise. So they can make a big stink about that. Often in politics, you could say, well, he's making a big stink about this issue. All right, he's talking a lot about this issue, making a big problem. All right, and then we've got chew the fat. All right, and that sounds a little gross, doesn't sound pleasant. Why do you want to chew the fat? And this is so opposite in its meaning. This is to have a fun conversation. So chew the fat is to have a fun conversation. So I could say, I went out to water my garden and I started to chew the fat with my neighbor, and you could even explain what you were chewing the fat about. We were chewing the fat about the weather. All right, just having a nice conversation, having a pleasant conversation about the weather. And you can chew the fat with your friend. You can chew the fat with anybody. It's just having a good conversation with someone about anything. All right, chew the fat. The last one we're going to do before we go, and I take a look at the ones that you guys have done and see if there's any questions, is to talk about the neck of the woods, either my neck of the woods or his neck of the woods, her neck of the woods, their neck of the woods. What does it mean, like neck of the woods? This just means area, okay, where I live. So it's where I live. So if I talk about my neck of the woods, I'm saying where I live, this happens. So I could say, when you are in my neck of the woods, come over or we'll go out. In other words, when you are in my area, when you are close to where I live, we're going to do this. You could even say, well, I was in her neck of the woods, and so I decided to go and we went out. I'm talking about her area, the place where she lives. So neck of the woods. And this one probably comes from many hundreds of years ago when people didn't live in the cities that we live today, and they lived in different parts of a more rural or wood, foresty area. And so you'd say, well, they were by my side of the forest, or I was by their side of the forest, my neck of the woods. All right, I want to take a look at the chat, see what you guys have, and see if there are any questions. Someone says my neck of the woods is the same in Korea, so that is great. Have a fun conversation. What do we have here? Area where I live. Exams make a big stink for students. I think that's funny. Exams do make a big problem for students. Someone has talked about a nice one. Speak of the devil. All right, maybe we will take a look at that one. I'll write it down so that we can remember that. Speak of the devil. Thank you, Maxim. I'm going to try this. Nadosakin. Thank you for that one. What else do we have here? Let's see if you guys have any questions. He make a big stink with her friend's family. So that's a nice one. Thank you, Jihan Fitriani. So we're saying he makes a big stink with her family. In other words, he made a big problem. Who knows what that problem was? Then we have, I like this one. His intelligence doesn't cut the mustard, or his intelligence cuts the mustard. His intelligence, in other words, meets expectations. And again, that's from Jahan Fitriani. All right, thank you. What else do we have here? I'm going cold turkey with Korean movies. All right, thank you, Rosalind Lagro. We'd like to know why you're going cold turkey with Korean movies, but sometimes you just need to go cold turkey on some movies, sure. I'm going cold turkey with smoking. Yes, very, very good. Again, Jahan Fitriani. And what else do we have here? Someone's asked a question. Are idioms good for the IELTS test? All right. Now, we have looked at the IELTS exam in some other live sessions, and it's a good question. And yes, idioms, even these idioms, because these are very common, are good for the IELTS. But remember what I said earlier when we looked at how to use them. Don't overuse idioms ever in conversation, especially in an English test. We know that it's nice to have idioms. It shows that you have an understanding of figurative expression. But if you put an idiom into every single sentence, it sounds too much because we don't speak like that. And you don't want you to speak like that. So yes, it's good for the IELTS, but don't overdo it. All right, what else do we have here? Let's take a look. All right. I don't see any other questions. All right, keep coming with the you cut the mustard in learning idioms. Well, thank you, Ayushi Jain. All right, we're going to carry on and do some more fun ones. So I'm going to take these off. All right, next one I want to do is a very strange one. Well, it sounds very strange, and it's very, very common. We talk about painting the town red. Paint the town red. What does it mean? Why are we painting the town red? Why are we doing anything like that? Paint the town red means to go out and have a good time. That's it. So go out and have a good time. So this could be anything. Again, you could go out to a movie and say, well, I'm going to paint the town red. I'm going to go to the movie, ice cream afterwards, just have some fun. All right. You could say, I'm going to go out dancing. We're going to get a little drunk. We're going to have fun. We're going to paint the town red. And it could even be something not like going out at night. You could paint the town red in any way. Okay. Whatever it is, it's about going out and having a good time, painting the town red. And another strange one, and I think this is shared with some other languages. If you guys are watching and it sounds familiar, let us know. We often talk about when pigs fly. So if you don't have that expression in your language, that's going to sound a little odd, when pigs fly. And what this means, and I'm going to put another one here at the same time, because we often have the same different idioms, but they mean the same thing. So when pigs fly and when hell freezes over. So hell, I'm sure you guys know, it's supposed to be very, very hot, and you're supposed to burn, and it's supposed to be pretty bad. And so when hell freezes over or when pigs fly, it means that something is probably not going to happen. All right. Pigs are not going to fly. They don't have wings. They're pretty big. And hell is supposed to be really hot. So it's not going to freeze over. Okay. So both of these mean the same thing. It means something is not going to happen. Probably. So a good example of this, you could say, well, I will pay for that when pigs fly. So in other words, I'm not going to pay for that car. I'm not going to pay for that house. It's too expensive. I'll pay for it when pigs fly. I'll pay for it when hell freezes over. In other words, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. All right, then another one that I think is very funny, and again, to do with food, we've got pigs, we had turkey, and now we've got fish. And this is a very strange sounding idiom. We say it's a different kettle, of fish. So now that's very strange. right? That's really strange because a kettle, usually that's what we boil water in to make like tea or coffee. And why are we going to put fish into the kettle? We're not making fish coffee or fish tea. And what does it mean? What does it mean? So firstly, what does it mean? It just means that we have a different thing completely, a different alternative to what you're talking about. You're talking about cars, but I'm talking about vacations and holidays. It's a different kettle of fish. So it's really just a fun, really funny way to say different things. So I'm talking about one thing, you're talking about another. The car is red, but the bicycle is blue. It's a different kettle of fish. Just different things that we're talking about here. Now, why is it a kettle? Where does this come from? A kettle is an old word also for like a pan. So that's where actually the kettle that we use today, where the word kind of comes from. So this is really just talking about, and I'm going to draw some bad fish over here. Okay, those are the worst fish I've ever drawn. But what we're really saying, it's a different pan of fish. It's a different pot of fish. That's what it really means. And it still means the same thing. We're talking about different things. And an interesting thing about where a lot of these come from, because even my explanations, I know they don't sound like, what does it mean? A lot of these come from very old plays, like Shakespeare or even Christopher Marlowe, and they would write in these very poetic ways. They would write in poems and like songs. That's how they would make their play. And they wanted things to sound different. So they would make this as a phrase and put it into the play. People liked the play and they would start using it. And that's how it became an idiom. That's how it got into English, from those old pieces of writing from many years ago. All right, I said we would do this one, speak of the devil. So let's do that one, that one of you brought up for us. So speak of the devil. Now the devil, we've got hell over here as well. The devil is, it's not important. It's not we're saying that the person is bad, but we're saying that we're speaking about someone and then they show up. Or we're speaking about something and then it happens. So that's what speak of the devil means. It's actually the actual expression is speak of the devil and you stand on his tail. That's the whole expression from the old play, from the old writings. So we say, so let's say I'm talking about Bob from earlier and we're talking about Bob, and then suddenly Bob comes into the room, speak of the devil. I was just talking about him and now he's here. That's what it means. So I was talking about him, or it could be like, I love the Ferrari, and then a Ferrari drives past. So I'm talking about him or it, and then I see them. Then I see them. All right, then I want to do a whole bunch at the same time. Again, another whole bunch that mean the same thing. And these, again, they sound a little strange. We have knock 'em dead, which sounds pretty negative. We have knock their socks off. Which is the same kind of thing, but it's a little less violence. So knock them dead, knock their socks off. We can also say give them hell. And I'm going to include another one here that we're going to just talk about, which is break a leg. So all of these are pretty weird sounding. Knock them dead, knock their socks off, give them hell, break a leg. And they all kind of mean go do well, and I'm wishing you good luck. That's what they mean. I know it sounds very strange. Okay, so they all kind of mean do well and good luck. Let's just talk about why and where they come from. We'll start with break a leg. Often we will say break a leg when we're talking about good luck to someone that is going to perform something. So maybe they're going to go do a song, maybe they're going to go do a play, maybe they're going to even be in a race or something. And you say break a leg because there's this old superstition that if you tell someone that's going to give a performance good luck, you're kind of like asking the gods to give them bad luck. That was the old superstition. So you didn't want to say good luck because you were kind of getting the gods involved here and they were going to give this guy some bad luck. So you say break a leg to confuse the gods. All right, so break a leg, it's okay. So when you say break a leg to someone that's about to do a performance, you're actually saying good luck. What about knock them dead or knock their socks off or give them hell? Think of this as, again, a competition. All right, so if someone is going to be in a boxing competition, all right, give them hell means do well, all right, kind of beat the other guy up, or if you're in the race, win. Give them hell means good luck and do well and win. Same thing for knock them dead. So obviously this, again, comes from think of it as boxing. If you knock someone out and they fall down, and it's a knockout, it's like you're not killing them, hopefully, but you're knocking them dead, all right? It's a knockout. So that's how you must think about where these came from. And knock their socks off, same kind of thing, all right? It's almost like hitting someone so that they fly out of their socks. That's how hard you hit them. And again, over time, these became just do well. Doesn't have to be in a fight, but do well. So it could be an exam. If someone's going to write an exam, I could say, well, knock them dead or give them hell. In other words, do well. Good luck. All right? Let's take another little break and see what you guys have come up with, and then we'll do a couple more fun ones. All right, what do we have here? And someone says, again, speak of the devil is the same in Korea, but it's a tiger instead of the devil. So it would be speak of the tiger. I like that. It's interesting. Thank you, Myungbran Kim. I hope I pronounced your names correctly. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay. We have Harry Ho, who's been writing down everything for everyone, and I appreciate that, has brought up another one. I'll keep my fingers crossed. And I do want to talk about that one. I'll write it down here because there's a lot of confusion about that. Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed. We'll talk about that in a second. Thank you for that. Let's just see if there's any other questions. Someone's asked the question, how are idioms different from phrasal verbs? Which is it's a good question. Let me just write down the word phrasal verbs so that we remember what that is. Now, a phrasal verb, and I'm sure you guys know from your studies in English, is usually 2 or 3 words when one of them is a verb and one of them is a preposition. And something like, let's think of a really simple one, drop off. Okay, so it's a verb and a preposition. And they are similar. An idiom and a phrasal verb are similar in that they are both figurative language. But obviously the idiom has sometimes some weird history and are very, very strange. Very, very strange. And they can be long and they can be short. The phrasal verb is usually shorter. And the phrasal verb is more often used. So like we said before, idioms you don't want to use all the time. It's just too much. Phrasal verbs you can use much more often. All right, so thank you for that question. Let's look at fingers crossed and then a couple of others. Now, fingers crossed is actually very similar to what we were looking at before about wishing someone good luck. Or at least that's what people think about it as now. It really comes from hold thumbs. So if you say, well, I'm holding thumbs for you, usually they would be like a for you. I'm holding thumbs for you, which looks kind of weird. But again, it means I'm hoping for good things for you. That's what it means. I'm hoping for good things for you. Now, often what's happened is that people use fingers crossed as meaning the same thing. They'll say, well, fingers crossed, it's going to happen. And that's more of a new use of the word fingers crossed, because actually, long time ago, well, not so long ago, but in recent long ago, fingers crossed was a negative thing. Because if I had my fingers crossed behind my back, can you see it there? Fingers crossed, that means I was lying. Okay, so fingers crossed actually has kind of two meanings. Sometimes they conflict with each other. So a lot of people use fingers crossed for hoping for good things, but it can also mean to tell a lie. I had my fingers crossed. I was lying about that. So thank you, Harry Ho, for bringing that up, because it is an interesting one. Let's do another one that is really strange and is from a popular movie, which is Two Shakes of a Lamb's Tail. Two Shakes of a Lamb's Tail. I'd be interested to know if you guys could guess the movie that this comes from. This very popular movie. It's from Pulp Fiction, when one of the characters uses this. And it just means I'm going to do something quickly. To do something quickly. So I could say, I will make the sandwich in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. In other words, I'm just going to do it quickly. Okay, and in the movie, the character says, I'm coming in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. They're going to come quickly. They're going to come, and it's going to be very quick. Probably comes from the fact that a lamb moves very quickly and their tail moves quickly. Again, we don't know. We don't know. And then another one is to be thick as thieves. Thick as thieves. And again, what does it mean? Where does it come from? This just means to be good friends with someone. So I could talk about it with me. I could talk about someone else. I could say, oh, those two, they are thick as thieves. In other words, they are just really good friends. It's like they're really close, right? They're very, very close. They talk all the time. Or I could say me and her, we're thick as thieves. In other words, again, we're very, very close. We talk all the time. We are really good friends. So that's thick as thieves. Let's do another weird one that we haven't done any that aren't weird. We'll do 2 more. So let's do fat chance and slim chance, which actually mean the same thing. All right. And you will hear these a lot again on movies. Fat chance and slim chance. And even though the one is fat and the one is slim, they mean the same thing. Now, chance, the word chance in this, means something that is it possible that it will happen. So let's think of a game or a bet, all right, like a horse race. So if the horse is not fast, maybe he's overweight, and the horse, it runs very slow, fat chance that it will win, or slim chance that it will win. So in other words, both of these means it is not probable. And we use the word probable, not possible, because possible it means something different. The horse could still win. So it's not that it's not possible. It's just not probable. That horse does not have a good chance of winning. It's overweight and it's slow. So fat chance it's going to win. Slim chance it's going to win. Also, we could talk about it in terms of ourselves. So let's say I'm playing the lottery, all right, and I choose my numbers. The truth is that I have a slim chance of winning, okay? I don't have a probable chance of winning the lottery. That's just how it is. All right, so that's fat chance and slim chance. And then let's do one more, and let's do another weird sounding one, which is, just looking at my list here, all the bells and whistles. All the bells and whistles. So we know what a bell and a whistle is. We know it makes a sound. When we talk about something as having all the bells and whistles, it means it has all the extra bits that make it really good. So this again could be for anything. Let's talk about a computer. Okay, we could say, well, the computer has all the bells and whistles. It's got all the extra things. It's got a big screen. It's got extra memory. It's got a built-in webcam. It's got all the bells and whistles. If it's a car, we could say, well, it's got mag wheels. It's got good suspension. It's got a V8 engine. It's got all the bells and whistles. All right, so all the bells and whistles means all the extra good things. We could even talk about it for a hotel or even for a person in a way. We could say, well, the hotel has a beach view and it has breakfast included and it's got a big room. It's got all the bells and whistles. And even if a person has everything, let's say you see their resume, you could say, well, it's got all the bells and whistles. In other words, it's got everything that I want that I need for the job. So all the bells and whistles. All right, let's take a final look and see if you guys have sent anything else. Break a leg for your new job. Thank you, Brishna. Oh, your name disappeared there for a second, but that was a good one. Break a leg for your new job. Do well in your new job. Someone has asked about to be on the same page. So we can talk about that one. Thank you. Who brought that out? Sueli Ishiyama. All right, we'll do that one. Be on the same page. And let's just see if there are any other sentences. And I agree. I agree that Pulp Fiction is a great action movie. Thank you, Raphael NV. Happy as a dog with two tails is also a good one. All right, let's do this final one, which is to be on the same page. Okay, so I'm going to write it nicely. Be on the same page. And this means to understand each other. All right, so if we're reading a book, it means we're both looking like at the same page. It means to understand each other. So I could say that me and my student, we were on the same page. We knew what we were doing and we knew what the course was like. We understood each other. It could be for a more personal thing. Me and my son were on the same page. Okay, we understood what we were going to do and how much fun we were going to have that day, or whatever it is. So it means to understand each other, to be on the same page. All right, I think we're going to stop there for today. Remember that you guys can go and get a big discount on Cambly. All you have to do is use the code GOLIVE. I'm not sure of the exact discount amount, but go take a look to make sure. If you guys don't know what Cambly is, it is a great platform. It's web-based, or there's an app where you can learn one-on-one with tutors just like me. You can do anything. You can do IELTS preparation. You can do grammar practice, conversation practice, whatever you want to do. So go check it out. Thank you for joining us here today. If you want to have a lesson with me, I think there's a link in somewhere below. Thank you for joining us here today. Please come back for another Cambly live session, and we will see you again soon. Bye for now.